Welcome back, everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how to work with basic entities. So let's go ahead and start off. Over here on the left-hand side, you'll see your scene list, and here you'll see it says root. That's where everything begins, and then everything we've got here in our basic scene. So this is the hierarchy up here, and you'll see that there is a little plus symbol right here, which will let you add entities. There's a little duplicate button right here, so you can make copies of your entities. And then there's a little garbage can here, so you can delete entities. So those will come in handy in a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, and if I click on the little plus button here, you'll see that I've got a whole bunch of different choices here. I've got just a plain generic entity. I've got audio, camera, lights, model, and this is if you want to bring in your own model. You can bring in particle systems, primitives, sprites, and user interfaces. For this beginning tutorial, we're going to go ahead and just start off with where it says primitive, and you'll see that we have some basic shapes that we're going to go ahead and bring in. So I'm going to go ahead and choose a capsule, and you'll see that a capsule comes into the screen, and it's listed over here in my hierarchy. So now I can come over here and I can grab the edge of this little gizmo here, at least that's what they call it here in Play Canvas, and I can orbit around the scene, and you'll see I can see the new capsule. Okay, so when you've got a new entity in here, you'll see that I've got this gizmo here. Some programs call this a widget, but gizmo is what Play Canvas calls it. So you'll see that I can move my capsule around on all three axes. Y is green, x-axis is the red, and then the blue is the z-axis. And you can just click and you can drag it over there. If you look over here on the left-hand side, you'll see that we actually have all three of those functions. We can move or translate, we can rotate, and you'll see that when you rotate, you now have the rings, so you can move those. And for my students coming from Play Canvas, this is identical in Play Canvas, so it should be very familiar to you. And you can go ahead and freely rotate it around and do all that. And then of course we have scale, so you can go ahead and scale on the three different axes, and you can do it there as well. Okay, going back, you also have, when you choose move, rotate, or scale, you can come over here to the controls over here, and you'll see position, rotation, and scale, and you can type in values over here so you can be very accurate and precise. You can left click out here and you can select anything in your scene. I do find that sometimes when you're trying to select a light or the camera, it becomes a little tough, and so it's easy to just come over here to your hierarchy and just click on it, and it will select it every single time. Remember that you can also select an object and then press the letter F, and you will focus in or frame right around that particular object. So if you get lost or you just need to zoom in on something, you can go ahead and do that. To delete an entity, you simply select it, and then you can right mouse click on it. And when you right mouse click, you can do a couple of different things. You could copy it and paste it later. You can duplicate it. So now I've got a duplicate that's right on top of the original. You can also right mouse click and you can delete. So one easy way of doing that. Another easy way to move, rotate, and scale is with the numbers 1, 2, and 3. So if I go ahead and I've selected the box here, if I press 1, I'm going to be on the move tool. If I press 2, I'm going to be in the rotate tool. And if I press 3, I'm going to scale. So there's scale, press 1, and I'm pressing the numbers at the top of my keyboard. I don't have a numpad on the side, so just the numbers at the top of your keyboard, 1, 2, and 3, will do that as well. Or you can go ahead and just use these over here. So we now have our scene here. Let me go ahead and add in a couple more entities. Again, I'll go here to primitive. Let's bring in a cylinder. Now, here's something interesting that's happened. You'll see that I added in a cylinder, but it came inside the box. And if you look over here, you'll see that I have a cylinder, but it's underneath the box. What's going on? Well, what happens is that if you have an entity selected, right now I have the plane selected, and then I come up here to add entity, primitive, and I'm going to choose a sphere. Because I had an entity selected when I added in a new entity, it adds it to the previous one. So now the plane is the owner of the sphere, and you can see that it changed the shape of the sphere to match the other object. So I have this squashed, flat looking pancake thing. And so not only don't want that, is I don't want it to be shaped that way. So what do? Well, you can always right mouse click and you can hit delete. Gone. The easiest thing to do is this. If it's owned by a parent object, and we'll get into that later, this is kind of a grouping thing, so that if I move the box, you'll see that the other object comes along with it. And that's really handy, but we'll get into that much later. You can make these ungrouped by clicking this object and then just dragging it out into the list. And when you let go, you'll see that it no longer is owned by the box, and you'll see that it also snapped back to its original shape. And now it's its own object, and the box no longer controls it. Okay, so how do you add in an entity so it doesn't join in on one of the other objects? I find the easiest way is to come up here and click on root, and root is basically your whole scene. Then click on add, go to the primitive section, and I'll choose a cone. And now you'll see cone is added here, and I've got my cone here, and I can go ahead and move it around. Okay, real easy. Okay, finishing up. How do we rename an object? So this comes in as cone and cylinder, but if I want to go ahead and I want to add in another cylinder, I now have two cylinders and they're both called cylinders. So how do I know which is which? So the easiest thing to do is select your object in the hierarchy over here, come over here on the right hand side where it says entity, and then now I can go ahead and I can type in whatever I want. Press return, and it's renamed over here. Okay, so get in the habit of renaming your entities, definitely. Okay, so the last two things I want to show in this video is how to manipulate the camera and then how to launch a preview. So I'm going to come over here and select the camera, and you'll see a nice camera preview over here, so that's really good. And you'll see we've got our controls here. You can still do the regular controls, so I can press 1 to move, 2 to rotate, and 3 to scale, although you really can't scale your camera. So I'm going to stick with move, and you'll see that if I move the camera around, I get a real-time preview, so that's really handy. You can also come over here on the right and look at the properties here, position, rotation, and scale. I find this to be really helpful. So for instance, if I go ahead over here where it says position, if I type in 0 for the x-axis, and then I'm going to press the number tab, or press the tab key, and then you'll see by pressing tab, it moves to the very next box. And this is the y-axis. So I can just press 0, tab, and it basically goes through all of these boxes. Now, if you don't want to keep pressing tab, you can just press return, and then you'll finish. Okay, so now when I type in 0, 0, 0 for the position, you'll see that my camera has been moved to the origin, and that's right here in the center of the world. That's 0, 0, 0. So that's right there in the middle. And then I can go ahead and I can just click and I can drag and I can move it out here on the z-axis, and I can maybe lift it up a little bit, and you'll see now my camera is up in the air looking like that. I'm going to reset my rotation, so I'm going to come up here and I'm going to type in 0, tab, 0, tab, 0, and then press return. So now, when you zero out your rotation, now my camera is looking down in the Z axis. So you can see that. You can see that here. And now I can just go ahead and move my camera back so that I can see things a bit better. Something like that. Okay, so that's positioning my camera. Now, if I want to launch my game, which there's not much to my game, but if I want to launch it, I can come up here and click on this little play button here. And what it will do is it will launch a new tab, and then you will see that right there, which is really cool. One final thing that I will show in this video, and this is very cool that Play Canvas has this, is that when you launch your game, it opens up in a new tab. But if you want, you can actually tear off that tab. So now I've got it in a separate window, and I can go ahead and I can resize it. I'll go ahead and I'll make this a little taller here like that. And then what I can do, let me resize my windows here. If you've got a big enough monitor, or even better if you have two monitors, if you've got your launch window open, you'll see that you can edit inside the Play Canvas window here. And you'll see real-time updates. So that's pretty cool. It does require a little bit more from your computer because you're playing it at the same time. So it's definitely neat and really helpful to be able to see that in real time. So yeah, anyway, if that helps you out. All right, thank you very much everyone for staying and watching this. I will see you in the next video.